Right, fire away.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Rowan, Hawkeye Moto. Alex hit me up not too long ago, wanted to come round and have a look at the workshop, see what I get up to, see all the things I've been hiding. So come take a look. We've got a few cool toys here, a few things that I like to ride, abuse, and just have all-round fun on. So this is a 1975 Yamaha XS 650. It's been converted into a hardtail chopper by the previous owner. I bought this as a 90% done project. It was on the road and it just needed a few things finishing up, such as paint, pipes and some tuning. With help from some great guys, Inglorious and Moto Edit, we got this thing running really well, looking really gnarly. It's actually aesthetically one of my favourite bikes in the garage at the moment. There's something mean about it, but also the sort of the Japanese style chop with the elements of your American Harleys. It just does something for me. We've even chucked on a pillion seat, which is going to make you laugh. You've got to be about 5 foot tall to sit on there. So yeah, I'm taking applicants if you can find anyone small enough. I don't know if you can hear me, but I can certainly hear the bike. Oh, popping and banging. I think we'll give that one a rest for now.
Okay.
So yeah, it starts. It's probably got some dirty old fuel in it, but this is ridiculously loud. And I think it's the only bike I own that I've had someone shake their head at me when I've ridden past them. So yeah, you feel like a bit of an outlaw. Probably best to just keep this one quiet for a little while.
What next?
Next up is I always say it, and I think I still agree, my favourite bike of all time, the Honda CB750, the iconic superbike of the 70s. This one I've had for around 7-8 years. It started off as just a tatty running stock bike. Over the years it's been rebuilt, taken apart completely. Once again with the help of friends such as Moto Edit, it's been put back together with completely new nuts and bolts, repowder coated frame, the tank has been painted. It's a bit of a resto mod. There were some elements about it in the original sort of format that wasn't entirely to my style, such as the big mud guards. The seat was far too big, and other than that, it's small subtle changes. It's got this Moto GP Works pipe on it, which again is ridiculously loud. Normally I'm not a man that wants a loud bike, but so this is my personal favourite bike and one that I hope stays with me for as long as possible. It was built by a chap not too far from here called Slab City. It's a 1968 Bonneville frame with a 66 T120R engine in it. It's got all the good stuff such as the Bates competition seat, the TR6C front end with the pullback risers. There's been lots of modifications.
Show us what they are. What's the pullback riser?
So the risers are here, just positions the bars further back,
yeah,
which is great for off-road riding. Standard, they're here, so the bars are a bit further forward.
And Bates was an aftermarket brand back in the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, so they're still around as well. You can still order them. This is a replica version, which comes from Ace Classics or Ace Desert Parts.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people around here know who they are.
Yep.
Other parts on it are just small changes to suit the type of riding that I do with it.
What else have you done? What are the small changes?
So we have got a sump guard on it.
That's a big old bucket, isn't it, under there?
It's necessary. I don't know if you can see, but there are plenty of dents in that from the various...
Close up in a bit.
Yeah, different types of terrain I've hit with that. There's been many a rock this bike has bounced off. The side stand has been mounted and moved further back.
Gets it off the front.
Yeah, and it also means you can have the clean mounting of that sump guard.
Okay.
The pipes, these were made, I don't know who made these, but these were made by another local guy and fitted by the previous owner. Something I find most interesting is this side panel, which houses the toolbox, came from a White Helmets rider's bike. I believe his name was Corporal John Deegan, and the guys at Bristow Classics had that on the shelf and kindly parted with it so that I could use it on this. It's made to be used on the side of the road because I'm sure anyone who's got an old British bike knows you have to be prepared to
spending a bit of time there. Shouts out to Oxford.
Yeah. Some real genuine patina on this one.
There is.
Which is how it should be on these old bikes. Used and enjoyed.
White Helmets were the stunt team, weren't they?
Yeah, that's the one. And the rest of the other bits on there, like the headlamp cover, they're just to prevent things smashing whilst I'm out on the road. Obviously it comes off at night. But this is my favourite bike. So that was easier than the other ones.
Very quiet.
Yeah,
Very quiet.
very quiet. It's in comparison to the others. So this has just had a fresh barrel and rebuild from the guys at Bristow. I absolutely abuse this thing, so yeah, they look after it for me on the regular. Sounds like a Triumph should.
Very tight.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It's beautiful.
Is that a ride or for a bit? Very nice. Nice work.
Yeah, really good work.
I always listen from the front because I can tell how it's been put together.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so other bits that we've noticed whilst we've been walking around it. First of all, the Avon Gripster, which is a new old stock tyre on the front. I used to run a fatter trials tyre, but I found when I was riding on the dirt or in the sand, I wanted it to be a little bit skinnier to act like a rudder and do what an off-road tyre should do.
When you say new old stock, when was it produced?
This would be a period tyre. I think it could be 1983 from the stamp on there.
The rubber doesn't. What's the consistency of the rubber then? If that's
the condition of this one is immaculate. You know, it's not perished. It's not like a brand new tyre, but we've still got movement on the knobbles. There's no cracking or obvious signs of perishing. So I'm happy to ride it on the road as well as on the dirt. I've got faith in it.
Yeah.
I've seen some new old stock tyres that are better off being used to surround a dartboard. And then we've got this desert style front fender. I haven't painted it, I've left the brackets as they are. The rust in my eyes just helps with the look. These are designed, this is from Ace Classics as well. These are designed flat as they were back in the day to allow the dirt to move out of the way. It protects you and helps with visibility, but doesn't get jam-packed with dirt when you're riding.
Was there any laws around them? Because I'd imagine if you had a stack, that could be quite slicey to the other riders, couldn't it?
I think this is one of the benefits with vintage bikes being MOT exempt, is you can get away with a few things more like that. But yeah, if you're in a racing scenario, everyone should be wearing the correct armour, so it's not something I worry about. But if you ran a child over, probably split them in half.
What else did we talk about just then?
So something that's really special and I guess unique to me is I always carry spare spark plugs. Jubilee clip them to the frame. these are the kind of thing that can be the difference between getting home or not. As most people will know, spark plugs these days aren't quite what they used to be. They seem to not last as long, so having spares with me are a massive help. And then we've got the rear tyre, which is a Mitre Stone King. Because I ride this on the road as well as the dirt, it's fairly worn out now, but these are really aggressive off-road tyres. I've run them on everything from enduro bikes to green lane bikes to this desert sled here, and I'm really fond of them. Got a lot of trust in them, and they are great for starts.
Starts?
Yeah, for pulling off the line, hooking up. You can just dump the clutch and just hang back and trust the traction. We've got an Electrex World ignition on this, which enables us to run it batteryless with stop and tail lights and a headlight, which helps reduce weight and is a real simple system. So I'm a big fan of those. I think I'm going to be using that same system on the next Triumph. Obviously, if the guys at Bristow want to use it, because they'll be the guys doing the actual work, I'll just be here claiming the glory and riding them. You can't really hide this one.
No.
This is a 1976 Ford F100. It was imported from South Africa earlier this year, so it's right-hand drive. I was never really fussed about vehicles being left or right-hand drive, but it felt right for something that I intend on daily in the future to go with it. It's a bit of a beast. It's got a Cleveland 351 V8 in it, which is a 5.7 litre, I believe.
Let's have a look. Lovely.
Yeah, it's great, and despite being such a giant engine, there's so much room around it to work on, which really helps out.
Do you do the work on it?
No, I do not. To be honest, the more we talk about it, the more I realise I don't do the work on any of these things. I'm so lucky to be surrounded by incredible craftsmen and tradesmen. Unique Classics do the work on any of the vintage vehicles that I've got.
Yeah.
They're based in Chingford, and just great guys, passionate about the vehicles, understand the needs of their customers, and yeah, sort of they get to know you and know what works for you as opposed to just chucking things on.
What do you use this for, mate?
Going to the dump, hauling bikes around, practice days. If I just want to head out and really enjoy a cruise and feel like I'm in something, you know, big and powerful. And also the most important thing, collecting my Christmas tree this year. So yeah, there's some old wheels in there, some stuff that I've got to ship off to eBay, some old parts off Royal Enfield, a Dominator, I think there's a CG125. And of course the most important thing, the motorcycle ramp. So wherever and whenever I am, I can put a bike in there, because we all know that's the only thing that really matters.
I don't think I've ever looked inside one of these in my life.
This is quite a good example, but you'll probably notice if you look hard enough that there is no radio, no heating, no lighter socket, no nothing. And in this weather, to drive around in this, to prevent it from fogging up inside, you have to have the windows down. So
Mate, that must be freezing.
It's pretty cold, yeah, hence the blanket. So this area in here, this is the hangout, I'd say. This is where me and the boys catch up for a pizza. I like to keep this area a little bit tidier than the rest. We've got a Dominator that my dad built. He built this back in the early 2010s. He had a rule that no part was allowed to be more than £30 delivered. And I can honestly say it far outshines any bike I've ever attempted to build or have built. And it drives me insane, but he knows what he's doing and I'm just winging it. This Dominator has been used practically every year at the Mali Mile for the past few years. It's been shared between myself, my dad, a good friend of ours, Gary. I think Gary actually won the hill climb on it 2 or 3 years ago. It just hooks up really well, the torque is great. But yeah, it's like the ultimate trail and Mali bike, so I'm a big fan of that.
I know that sound. Sounds good, huh? XR100?
Yeah, I've had that since I was 8 years old.
Is that 91?
It's a 95.
95?
Yeah. So the way this one came about, I fell off the back of my dad's XR650R and broke my ankle. And within about 2 weeks, whilst I was still on crutches, my dad came home from work one day and he said, "Come out, look in the van." So I've gone outside, and he was always coming back with project bikes, and he was always working on varying things. So he slid open the door and I was like, "Oh, cool, another bike, Dad." And he said, "Well, next time you fall off, it'll be on your own one." And my mum was going absolutely mad. There was a rule, I think it was I wasn't allowed to ride it until my 9th birthday, which was about 2 months away. And I remember going in the shed every night, just looking at it, wanting to sit on it, wanting to start it up. And I've still got it now. And this, anyone that follows the Mali stuff or knows the mayhem that I get up to, this gets brought to the Mali Mile every year as well. It's quite a dominant bike within the lightweight class because there's so little power. It just it never wheel spins, and you can just ride it flat out.
And all this gear, do you wear all this or what?
It's a mixture in here really. So some of it is stuff that I have worn for past seasons. We've got the stuff from Wheels and Waves this year. We've got jerseys that were worn to race this year as well. And then some bits are more like collectibles. I'm really into vintage motocross, the Evo stuff. So Damon Bradshaw is a big name for me. You'll see next door why. But we've got some of his pants from the 80s.
He wore those?
He didn't wear them. They're the ones that he advertised in 1989.
Yeah.
They're a tiny bit too small for me, so I haven't worn them yet. And then next to it is a jersey from... They did a limited run in 2016 at Daytona, and the guy I bought this from met Bradshaw himself, who signed it. And then everything else in here is just things I like, enjoy. Like I've said before, I'm surrounded by talented people. So we've got my friend Linus, he's a sign writer, and he painted all the signs in here. He did the artwork on my helmet.
Which helmet?
The one with the chains that matches
down, mate.
the Royal Enfield.
You say Royal Enfield, you've said it a couple of times. Which Royal Enfield?
So I've got a Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, which I raced in the Hooligans class last year in the Dutch flat track. This room is the workshop room. It's where I maintain the bikes, especially the race bikes. After a race, I'll come back, strip the bits down that I need to, run through it, make sure everything's good. I like to keep this area relatively tidy, but this is the one where, you know, we'll be using the power tools and making the mess. The bike I mentioned whilst we were in there is the YZ250, which is a Damon Bradshaw replica with a flat track twist. We've got some changes in here to make it suitable for dirt track racing.
Talk us through the changes, because a lot of us, I'm a dirt rider, but I don't know. When you were telling me,
yeah,
I don't know what changes a flat tracker will make to their bikes. Talk us through what you do.
So you can go as heavy as you want, or you can, you know, do the small things that are necessary. There will be some people that change an awful lot. For this particular bike, we have a different front end, which consists of a 19-inch rim with no front brake. This is to allow you to run a flat track specific tyre. The rim is slightly wider than you'd have a 21-inch to help spread the tyre more. We have shortened and stiffened forks, and this helps get your weight further forward. You don't need the same amount of travel as you do on...
What travel you got on there?
Now you're asking. So we're seeing the difference in length here between the stock motocross forks for the YZ and the flat track forks that are mounted. You can see there's
4 inches or something?
Yeah, about 4 inches.
So you put spacers in there, shorter springs?
I have these done by BG Motorsport, and they put shims in, shorten the springs. They are an Olin specialist, but they'll work on anything you've got.
Okay. What else?
And then on the rear, we swapped the motocross tyre for a flat track specific tyre again.
Are these designed for when you're skidding around, because you're leaning over on your left-hand side?
Yeah, so you can see the pattern It's offset to one side, so if you picture when the bike is laid down on its left side, these are parallel and perpendicular with the ground, so you're getting to use the edges to drive and to brake. So on your regular tyres, you'd normally have a block pattern square. So these, yeah, they're designed to be used going one direction.
Yeah.
I've ridden round a roundabout with these, which is the opposite way to a flat track, and the bike pulls you away from the direction you want to go.
So it's quite noticeable.
It is definitely noticeable. They're the kind of tyres that when you're on the correct track, you have limitless trust in.
Yeah.
But in the wrong place, they are horrendous.
What else?
The shock is lowered and stiffened again.
Yeah.
They're revalved, sprung and shimmed. Some people do this with a linkage, an adjustable linkage instead.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the front brake's removed, and for a lot of the race series over in the UK and Europe, you have to have a lanyard cut-out kill switch. This is a speedway rule, I believe. So this goes around your wrist, and then if you fall off, it comes off and kills the bike. I replaced the kill switch with these just because it keeps the bars clean, but some people like both sorts on there. And then other than that, I've not changed much for this to be flat track specific.
So you could, I mean, if it sounds like you've just done the suspension, tyres, different rims.
Yep.
And taking the front brake off. You could get into that pretty quick, couldn't you, if you had a motocrosser?
It's possibly the most accessible sport, if you've already got a motocross bike, to be able to have a second sport.
So you also had something pretty cool that left today, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we just missed it. And when I say we just missed it, there was 10 minutes in it. So probably the most exciting thing I've had all year was the Triumph TF 250X. I have been dying to get my hands on one of them since the news dropped, and I was lucky enough to be loaned one by Triumph UK. They said I could do whatever I wanted with it, which was music to my ears, because I rode motocross, I rode flat track, and I rode on the beach, and I thoroughly enjoyed all of them. But the highlight for me was being able to convert a bike that I've been so hyped about into a specific bike for the sport that I'm so passionate about. Funnily enough, it was this front end that we fitted into it. A friend of mine runs a machinist shop called DeftCAD. He machined up some shims for the forks to fit into the yokes. Made me a new axle, so I used this front end with some spacers, and then my KTM 450 rear tyre, rear wheel, slid straight in, which I couldn't believe.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was great. So managed to turn that from a motocrosser into a flat tracker, back into a motocrosser, and just went out there and enjoyed every minute of it.
Give us your couple of paragraph review on the bike.
Everyone's asked me this, and people think I'm biased, and I thoroughly love this YZ250. I thoroughly love my KTM 450, but the Triumph, and I hate saying this because I don't like being, a sycophant, if you will, but it's the best motocross bike I've ever ridden, and I couldn't believe it. It's got enough power for me not to miss having a 450, but it's light and handleable. I haven't really ridden aluminium chassis motocross bikes that much. With the vintage ones, they're steel framed, and with the KTM, they're steel framed. But yeah, it just felt so good. I'm not a motocrosser, and I had a great time riding motocross. I've done beach racing a few times, and I actually raced it at Mablethorpe this Sunday. I had a little off, so I didn't do very well on the day, but I had an absolute blast riding it.
What are some of the standout things on that bike?
I think one of the first things is, for me, it's as simple as it comes black from the factory. I love pink, don't get me wrong, but the first thing I do with all of my bikes is tend to black them out. I think the stealth mode looks good. It's more aggressive, especially if you're racing. And the noise it makes when it's idling and when it's on the pipe, it's got a whirring sound it's really hard to describe, but if you've heard it, it sounds like no other motocross bike out there. When it's sat idling, it's just whistling away. It's almost like a supercharger sound. And then for me, the fact that the second I got on it, I felt comfortable. It had the stock suspension set up when I rode it on motocross, and it handled great. I didn't get arm pump or anything like that, which is, for someone like me that doesn't practice motocross, was quite a relief. But all in all, it's just like they've taken the best part of every motocross bike on the market, combined them into one, figured out what worked well, what didn't work well, and most certainly didn't beat about the bush in building a brilliant bike. So yeah, I can't fault it, which is annoying because, you know, we love picking holes in things. That's what we do as people.
And what else we got in here?
We got another special one. I say everything's special and I say everything's my favourite. I'm always excited. But this is my current project build. It's a 1960 Thunderbird 6T. So it's a pre-unit 650. I've been slowly ticking away at this, building a flat tracker to race in the vintage 4-stroke championship of the DTRA next year. I'm hoping to do well on it. I feel like if I can build the bike right, we'll get some podiums in the bag. I say the front's a little change. We've got a whole overhaul on the front. So DeftCAD, the machinists, made up these vintage style adjustable offset yokes. So this enables us to adjust the offset, which will shorten and lengthen the trail depending on which track we're on. So for those that don't know, adjusting the offset moves the stem forwards and backwards within the headstock itself. This motion, if you move it forward, will shorten the trail, which makes the bike easier to steer, but a little more snappy. And then if you move it further backwards, it lengthens the trail, which then makes it more stable. So depending on a short track or a long track, we will go with different ones. We got 5 and 10 mil spacing, so we just flip them around. And these slot in the top yoke and the bottom yoke and just give you that movability. These were machined by DeftCAD. Does a lovely job. Nothing more satisfying than a good bit of aluminium, especially on a race bike. So we've got Beetle GP forks. I've been told these are essentially a copy of the Serianis. I like them aesthetically. They've been rebuilt, rechromed and polished by AM Philpott, who are in Luton, and they're the go-to guys for having forks rechromed and rebuilt like that. The hub is a Harley spool hub. These are often used in choppers with a 21-inch rim for a brakeless front end. For me, it was so that we could have a wheel that could be flipped either way. If I wear one side of the tyre down, rather than have to pull the tyre off on the rim, I can just drop the wheel out, spin it round and chuck it back in. This obviously isn't necessary for a road bike or for any other reason than when you're at the track and you're short of time and you need to make adjustments quickly. And then the axle and the spacers were built by DeftCAD again. So the front end has had a big change really, and this is one of the most important bits of the bike for me, is to make it handle as well as possible. And then we've currently got a temporary tank on it. This is a oil in frame US spec tank. It's not quite what I want, so I have ordered a tank the same as my other Triumph, which is a unit US spec tank. I think they're 2.5 gallon, so it's really slim, helps me get my body moved around the bike, and I'm hoping that it will follow the lines a little bit better and bring it down a bit lower. Then we've got a genuine new Bates seat. So this is Bates as they make them now. This is just temporarily mounted so we can get the geometry right. There is a seat pad that goes on the rear fender that I've got ready to fit to it, and that's going to be mounted here. The hoop has been cut off, ready to fit a new one to enable the mudguard to sit where we want it to sit. It's hard to show you, but this wants to be up here, so leave that down there. The fender's going to sit up there and hopefully have a nice tube following that line.
Yep.
Then we've got Beator adjustable forks. These are built for trials bikes and enduro bikes in Spain. I went with these, one to match the front, but two for the levels of adjustability in them.
Back brake as well, that's an interesting setup.
Yeah, so the back brake is going to be probably the most challenging project on this. The plan is, much like the front, to build a rear wheel that can be used both directions. So I've found that some of the older Harleys had a twin disc front hub that's symmetrically the side. Going to use that, make spacers and mount a sprocket. I'm probably going to go with the same sprocket layout that I use on the other bikes. So we'll have a sprocket mounted this side directly to the hub on a spacer. The drum and everything you see here will be gone and we'll have a new wheel in there. And then we're going to mount a disc on the right hand side the same way that we mount the sprocket, and find a way to mount a caliper off of this swing arm. And that will enable us to have the brake pedal on the right foot as well as the gear pedal on the right foot. So when you're racing flat track and the bike's laid down on its left side, your left foot isn't anywhere near the bike, it's on the floor, or it's out being your third point of contact. So having the brake on the right foot is really important, but being able to change gears mid-turn is going to be the kind of thing that sets the difference between bouncing off the limiter throughout the whole corner or chugging your way around a corner. So
some people might not know that these bikes are gears on the right-hand side.
Yeah, so being a Triumph pre-Meridian Triumph, I think. Some people might tell me I'm wrong, but basically before the Japanese came over and infiltrated the market with the CB750s and all of those fantastic bikes, British bikes had the brake pedal on your left foot and the gears on your right foot. For me, this feels natural because I've been riding them so regularly, but for other people it seems so alien. So the benefit of having a vintage British bike to race is the gears are already on your right foot, but the downside is the brake is on the left foot. So if you were to look at a modern dirt bike that we race around an oval, those you have your brake on the right foot, and we just deal with the fact that the gears are on the left. But anything built specifically for flat track has them both on the right, like the famous XR750 or a Trackmaster Triumph of the 70s. With the pre-unit engines, the gearbox is separate, which means we've got a lot of clearance around here for the gear. The brake pedal is probably going to sit down at this level. We'll find somewhere to mount the master cylinder. This is probably the first time I've looked at it and talked about this out loud, and I am seeing space under here to mount one horizontally. Brake pedal will sit lower here, so your boot goes in between, and that way when you're tipping into a corner, you probably, if you ride off-road, you know that you sit on the outside of the bike. As your leg moves over, your toe naturally points further down. So the brake will be around here. We don't need to worry too much about clearance on this side because the bike doesn't get laid down this way. And the idea is that you can feather the brake and use it to break traction on entry into the corner. But if you do need to change gear, especially off the start line, it is a simple tap up. If you do have to change down, boot comes out. But realistically, we should be starting in second, kicking up into third and running the race in the same gear all the way round. The reason for doing this work with the hub with the sprocket is because rather than changing gears all the time, we change sprockets to suit the track. This is the messier part of the workshop. This is where I carry out work. We've got belt sander and linisher. This is just, when you're making up spacers or cutting things down, it's a lot easier. We've got a MIG welder. This is my dad's. He has lent it to me for a long time. I don't think he's ever going to get it back. So it's not my dad's, it's mine. Bench grinder and wire wheel. I can put the polisher on there, but it's very rare that I do that. And we've got a pillar drill. I am by no means an engineer or a machinist, but I like to do as much as possible as I can to work on the bikes and be self-sufficient. But like I've said before, I'm just surrounded by so many talented people that I'd rather just give all the tricky jobs to them, and I'll do the nice easy ones here. everything under the bench is just bits and bobs. We've got spares, we've got an ultrasonic cleaner, and the rest I'd say is just anyone that's got a workshop or a shed knows is tut. It's just tut. The stuff that we love junk, we love bits and bobs, memories and other things. And then we've got the spare wheel and tyre wall behind me. Seems a bit excessive, but each bike has different sets of tyres that are used. We've got flat track tyres, we've got ice racing tyres, motocross tyres, and I think there might even be a set of road tyres up there somewhere.
Right, Rowan, thanks for showing us around.
No worries, welcome.
I think we've looked at every single thing that you've got going on in here.
Yeah.
Now, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we've covered it all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, mate.
No worries, thanks for coming around.
Pleasure.